Council meeting of January 14, 2025 to order. Jennifer, will you take roll?
Councilmember Alberish,
You're on mute.
Here.
thank you. Councilmember Brown,
Here.
Councilmember Gold, Councilmember Wall,
Here.
Mayor Domkowski.
Here. And Councilmember Alberish, sorry that you're sick and we're wishing you a strong recovery. Just for the record, you're using a just cause exception to participate remotely because of a contagious illness.
Yes.
And there's no one in the room that's 18 or over.
No.
And I've been advised to just ask you to keep your camera on if you can during this period. So thank you.
Will
Nice
do.
to have you here. Thanks for finding a way to participate. And Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Brown, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, well, thank you, Dick. Before we begin public comment officially, I did want to take a moment to acknowledge the devastating fires in the greater Los Angeles area that have destroyed neighborhoods and displaced families and resulted in a loss of life. As of this moment, more than 12,000 structures and 24 people have lost their lives. And we as a community share our collective grief with those that have been impacted by this disaster. As elected officials, we have an imperative to mitigate the risk of fire in Woodside and the surrounding communities. I think, as we all know, a lot of Woodside's in the very high fire zone, and it's a constant threat to us throughout the year. And while that's always top of mind, and we are proactively involved in doing what we can over a long period of time, in the wake of this tragedy, we did reach out to Congressman Liccardo, State Senator Becker, Assemblyman Berman, and County Supervisor Mueller, all highlighting the need for federal, state, and county funding for fire prevention and to support our proactive efforts that we have in terms of the Defensible Space Fund, the hazardous tree removal work that we do, and also home hardening to hopefully increase our resilience as a community and be able to respond to any potential event that might unfold in the future. Additionally, I've contacted the fire marshal and the fire chief. Kevin and I were actually going to have meet them this morning, but unfortunately, illness also is at play, and so we had to push that back. But we were going to discuss our readiness and capabilities as a community to be responsive, and also, of course, to extend an invitation to council to come speak about what we can do and what they are able to do on our behalf in the community, and also answer anybody's questions. I would mention in some of that back and forth, I did learn that there are 8 personnel from Woodside Fire Protection District that have been sent to Southern California. We certainly wish them a very impactful time there and a safe time. And the way that works, just so everybody knows, is we staff up through overtime so that we don't fall below any minimum staffing requirements to do what we have to do here in Woodside. Lastly, about 2 hours ago, Supervisor Mueller called and wanted to relay that the county supervisors met today, and they did establish a subcommittee with Supervisors Mueller and Spear, who will be on this subcommittee to look at readiness and also lessons learned from what's happened in Southern California. So that is certainly a very promising step, and one that often leads to funding decisions for the priorities in the county. So our focus, just so everybody knows, is we're going to continue to work with the federal, state, and county on funding. We have a lot of great programs. We could just use more money to put those in place. We're going to work to agendize our wonderful partners at the Woodside Fire Protection District to come in and talk to us about our readiness and capabilities. And we're going to prioritize our own education and information and efforts at a town level, all the resources that we have from prevention and emergency preparedness and evacuation. So we'll be working on that. The idea is to have a series of speakers on this and to be doing what we can be doing along the way to redouble our efforts. So I think with that, we'll just open things up to public comment. Is there anybody in the room that would like to speak? Mr. Middleman.
Thank you for recognizing me without the beard. David Middleman, 280 Grandview. I just want to respond to your comments. As you know, and residents of the Hill and amongst the parcels that we own about 13 acres of heavily wooded forest. Our efforts to do fire prevention is fairly directly metered by the matching program on a yearly basis. We spent $40,000 this year to do vegetation management of the undeveloped parcel to remove dead, dying, and diseased trees because we recognize the clear and present danger to the Skywood Acres neighborhood. If there was a fire at the 15-mile-per-hour turn on 84, it would go straight through our parcel and then straight up the Skywood Acres. Even with that $40,000, that represented 50 trees on a parcel that has about probably nearly 1,000 plus, and only about less than an acre of work on 10 acres. So I say all that to say that if the matching program was expanded with federal funds, we could do more on a more regular basis to reduce the fire load on the Hill. Thank you.
Thank you. I have communicated that we could do 10 times more than we're doing right now. Anyone else? Any hands in the Zoom room? Okay, I think we have one last public announcement. I just wanted to hand this off to Dick. You want to talk about the senior safety workshop?
Yeah, this Thursday at 3 o'clock, we have scheduled we call it Safety Tips for Older Adults workshop here. It's going to be headlined by Woodside Fire. We'll be discussing some of the steps that can be taken to prevent falling at home. And it's going to also be followed up with other people that serve the unit, the needs of communicating to those seniors, such as the Woodside Library, Woodside and San Mateo County Library, the adult services for the county of San Mateo, and Hassett Hardware that's going to be describing what can be done to prepare your home for the possibility of avoiding falls. So this Thursday, 3 o'clock. And this is the first, by the way, of a number of kind of workshops that we intend to do over the next year, a couple of years on various issues that are important to all of us.
Thank you, Dick. And that's in this room, right?
In this room.
Okay. Any other public comments? Hearing none, we will close general public comment. And we have a couple of presentations. I think we have a guest from HIP Housing. If you would like to approach the mic.
Okay. I'm very short. There we go. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, and town staff. I'm Laura Fanucchi. I'm the Director of Programs at HIP Housing, bringing you good cheer tonight with our 2025 HIP Housing calendar. We had a record-breaking 500 calendar entries this year, and we had to pick the difficult decision of selecting 13 winners, which included a cover winner. I'm going to read the quote from April because it's kind of pertinent tonight since you have a presentation from Peninsula Clean Energy. And the quote reads, "My home is a special place where I feel safe and happy. With big trees, green grass, and a bright blue sky, it makes me want to help take care of the earth so everyone can have a clean and healthy place to live." So we hope that you enjoy these calendars throughout the year. There's a little bit of tidbit and history on each page about HIP Housing. I'll just give you a few quick highlights of what's going to happen in 2025 with HIP Housing. We hope to break ground on a new construction project in San Carlos, 33 units of affordable housing, mostly 2 and 3 bedroom units. We're partnering with Eden Housing to develop that project. Our housing readiness program, we've been working with the county to provide housing scholarships to seniors who are in the shelters and are long stayers in the shelters. So we're really happy about this partnership because we want to be able to ensure that our older adults have a safe place to live. Our home sharing program, we're also partnering with the towns of Atherton and Hillsborough on their housing element to raise awareness in the community about ADUs and how ADUs help to contribute to the town's affordable housing goals. So we have a whole outreach project that we're working with homeowners to educate them about Hip Housing's home sharing program to help them find a tenant for their ADUs. And then lastly, with our self-sufficiency program for families with children, we're also partnering with the county to have a dedicated person on our team at the shelters doing presentations for families to help them become more prepared for our self-sufficiency program, which is a 1 to 5 year housing scholarship program for adults that are enrolled in school and job training. So we're thankful for the town's support of our organization, and we thank you again for all of your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions from council or the public? Then I'll just, again, thank you for your work in the community and these lovely and touching, beautiful. I think January could be an architect, is my sense, but it's a good reminder of the vital work you do and the wonderful work. And so thank you. Thanks for being here. And Peninsula Clean Energy.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. Delighted to be here. Mark Hirschman, Director of Government Affairs for Peninsula Clean Energy. Thank you for your words at the outset of the meeting, Mr. Mayor. That was really appreciated. Though many of us, of course, have family and friends who are in the danger zone, and so our hearts go out to them. And Hip Housing, best calendar you can ever acquire. Here to give an update on Peninsula Clean Energy activities in the community. And to get us started, Jennifer, do you advance the slides, please? If you could go to the first slide, we have a short video presentation.
Peninsula Clean Energy was founded in 2016 with a clear goal: to provide clean energy, lower rates, and to combat climate change. As a nonprofit energy provider, I'm proud to say that we've managed to slash emissions by 94%, while at the same time increasing renewables and maintaining electric generation rates at a minimum 5% below PG&E. That's over $100 million back to our customers and our community since 2016.
In the past year, we've secured our largest wind contract to date, adding over 200 megawatts of clean energy into our resource portfolio. In 2024, we expect to bring online 5 new projects, adding over 300 megawatts of new capacity onto the grid. This will get us within striking distance of meeting our 100% renewable goal.
Peninsula Clean Energy is showing that we don't have to make a choice between affordable rates and cleaner energy.
We don't have to satisfy corporate shareholders. Our customers are our shareholders.
Peninsula Clean Energy was started to combat climate change, but now it's so much more. The true value of community choice is that it's local. It means going to your street fair and seeing us at a booth and asking a question about your energy bill. It's also when you go to plug in your EV and seeing a charger provided by Peninsula Clean Energy. Peninsula Clean Energy serves all of our customers in our community with different language outreach and programs for all income levels.
A lot of the programs that come from Peninsula Clean Energy help our communities to take part, because many times the communities that we serve are left out with the policies that comes down to address climate change and greenhouse gas emissions.
We're helping the community install thousands of chargers, including at hard-to-reach places like apartment buildings.
So with Peninsula Clean Energy's EV Ready program, this has been so affordable. We're at 29 outlets installed, and the cost has been basically nothing. And for mom and pop housing providers, that's really, really important to us because we don't have a lot of capital to spend.
The average charger in our program is being installed for about $4,000, much less than the average of $10,000 to $18,000 in other programs.
We are your local partner in building a sustainable community. Peninsula Clean Energy remains steadfast in our commitment to power our communities, combat climate change, and provide affordable clean energy to the customers we proudly serve.
So just a little bit of, well, just a little bit of level setting. I know we have new council members and members of the community who may not be familiar with Peninsula Clean Energy.
Peninsula
Whoop. Putting our customers first, if we could go to the next slide, please. We are a joint powers authority, so we are a government agency. We also identify ourselves as being not-for-profit in that, as compared to an investor-owned utility, we do not have a profit motive, no shareholders. It was launched in 2016 by a unanimous vote of every city council in San Mateo County and the County Board of Supervisors. And so we thank you, Woodside, for your vote to help form the Joint Powers Authority. Over the years, a number of members of the council have been on our board of directors. Every city has one board member on the board. We expanded to include Los Banos and Merced County about 3 years ago. And I know Councilmember Wall served on the board a couple of years ago. Councilmember Fluette was there last year, and I know you have on your agenda this evening a selection of committees, so we look forward to a new board member. Right now, we serve over 310,000 customers in San Mateo County and Los Banos. And so if you could advance the slide, Jennifer. So what we do is we are the procuring entity. We generate the energy. It is predominantly wind and solar. We also have some large hydro and small hydro, a little bit of geothermal. And so that's what we do. We put it onto the grid through PG&E poles and wires. And so it runs on those wires and it comes to you and it's on your PG&E bills. So there's a separate line for Peninsula Clean Energy. It's not an additional charge. You would be getting charged those fees by PG&E if you remained with PG&E as what we call a bundled customer. But in fact, our rates are lower than PG&E rates. So that savings is realized in your bill. Jennifer, if you could advance the slide. That savings has grown to over 163 million. And I think we're going to be pushing 200 million here pretty soon because the difference last year was even greater. Our board had initially pegged our rates to 5% less than PG&E. Last year, they went to a new cost of service method of setting rates. But the savings on that is been over close to 200 million so far once we get the latest figures for last year. And the reason we went to the cost of service measurement is we think that will help save customers even more money. In addition to that, as you saw in the video, we work with a number of nonprofits throughout the area, and last year gave out over $530,000 in grants to those nonprofits. Basically, what we ask them to do is to work with their clients, the people that they serve, to inform them about different opportunities for bill discounts, care and FARA programs, and other bill savings, ratepayer savings, and other benefits that they can get programs through the state and through Peninsula Clean Energy. If we could go to the next slide, please. I mentioned that we have some geothermal, and if you look at the chart here, we're the dark blue line at the bottom. That's how much carbon we're emitting. The reason we're not at zero is because geothermal is considered to be an emitter at this point, but otherwise that's our standard project, the Eco Plus. We also have another product which we call Eco 100, and if you subscribe to that, it costs you a little bit more, but it's 100% renewable clean energy. And that's as compared to the state levels and PG&E current levels. If you could advance the slide, please. We have a number of programs to benefit ratepayers and businesses and government. This includes a very popular program we initiated a couple of years ago. It's a up to $10,000 0% loan. So if you want to put in a heat pump water heater, HVAC system, or otherwise, we will loan you $10,000. It will be paid off on your PG&E bill. It's up to 5 years and up to $10,000. Very popular, over 600 applications, loans given out since we started that about 2 years ago. If you want to put in a heat pump water heater or some other electric devices into your home, we can help with, we have money available for that to help create an incentive, and can also help you find other programs, regional, state, and federal programs that might help you get into those appliances. One of the exciting things that we just started within the last few weeks is an one-stop shop concierge service. So one of the biggest bits of feedback we've gotten over the years is that it's really hard for people to know where to go to get the discounts. And we get calls from everybody from the do-it-yourselfers who just need to know where the money is to somebody who needs everything done and they're handheld through the whole process. Can you direct me to a contractor? So we set up this new concierge service. It runs 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. And you can find the number on our website. Its email address is info@penncleanenergy.com. And the phone number 866-966-0110. And they would love to hear from you, take your questions, and assist you as best they can. Next slide, please. One of the key ways of reducing emissions is through electric vehicles. And so we are focused on installing EV chargers. As you heard in the video, we do it for a relatively small amount. We also help with the design for businesses and apartment owners and cities, help design the chargers and the program, and then help subsidize the cost. We also have rebates for used EVs for income qualified customers. And we have a very, very popular e-bike program. It usually launches in the summer and is oversubscribed or subscribed anyway and closed in short order. But it's up to $1,000 for somebody to go and purchase an EV electric bike. And so very popular program. So keep your ears open for that when we announce it next. Next slide, please. And we love partnering with our constituent cities. We have money available for climate action plans, support for EV fleets, and we have a program you may be familiar with because Woodside is participating, but it's our government PV or government photovoltaic. We have 12 projects that were funded in round one, and about 30 to 40 projects in round two, of which I believe Woodside is a part of that. And very exciting, last year we made additional grant money and a member agency grant money available, 2 different grant programs. In the member agency grant, Woodside received $113,000 from Peninsula Clean Energy, and I understand they're putting that towards electric landscaping equipment. So very exciting to partner with Woodside for that. We could go to the next slide, please. We have a 98% participation rate in Woodside. We thank you very much. That's terrific. And the amount saved by Woodside customers as a result of the discount on the generation rates has been about $2 million in the 8 years since we launched. As mentioned, we have this solar panel system for the town hall under development, and also we are neighbors. Our office has been just down the street on Woodside Road for a number of years now, and so love coming up here and visiting. And also our community relations department has been to Woodside High School and other places throughout the town. As mentioned before, Councilmember Fluitt and Town Manager Bryant have represented Woodside on the board of directors for the last year, and I know we're going to miss both of them, but we look forward to the new director being appointed and working with him or her in the year ahead. And lots going on, and happy to take any questions you may have, but appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening.
Very good. Any questions? Yeah.
While we all know we need energy, we still are winning. What do you think that the ABM community
Mark, can you repeat the question into
Yes,
the microphone? So everyone can-
The question is, what do we do to protect the avian community with wind? And I'm not, and solar. I'm not sure what the issue is as it pertains to solar and the avian.
Solar, you know, you burn something in the solar, like, they can just burn up in a second.
I'm not familiar with the issue. She's concerned that birds, that there's heat associated with the solar that is dangerous to birds, and I'm not familiar with that issue. I'm happy to get back to you on that. I know that Audubon Society and other avian focused organizations are supportive of wind power because they understand the benefit that wind power provides and the danger that climate change is to all species. And so in general, you know, there is that issue. I can't speak personally with authority on the issue, but I do know that that it is of concern, but that the relative to other things that harm birds, it's relatively not as significant.
Thank you.
Yep.
You have a relatively new CEO?
We do.
Yeah.
Sean Marshall became our CEO about a year and a half ago. And looks forward to coming to the council to introduce herself and to meet with you. So yes, and we have a new COO. You saw Sean in the video. You saw Shalini Swaroop is our COO, and we have a new CFO. Both our COO and CFO joined us about 14 months ago or so. So a lot of change. The organization is growing and expanding. And the programs available and the information available.
So with so many changes in the C-suite, any change in vision, initiatives, anything coming down the pipe that is evolving a little bit differently with new faces and ideas?
Yes, absolutely. And so I thank you for asking that. It has become a much more customer-centric focus. We understand that the number 1, 2, and 3 issues of concern to our ratepayers is the affordability of energy. And so we are doing everything we can to help ratepayers absorb those costs. We have changed our focus from a steady discount to a cost of service model, which we think will benefit customers. We had a number of programs over the last year where we provided rebate credits, bill credits of $300 each to our Care and Fair customers to help them through the holidays last year. So a number of programs, our government program that's funding the equipment in Woodside was another opportunity that the board took to and staff took to refocus attention on to helping ratepayers in the community to electrify.
What do our residents need to do to switch the power generation? Obviously not the power lines, but to source it from your firm?
So they're automatic under state law that created a community choice aggregator such as Peninsula Clean Energy. Was a law that passed about 20+ years ago. You are automatically enrolled in Peninsula Clean Energy and you need to opt out. If you did choose to opt out, apparently 2% of Woodside ratepayers opted out. They can go to our website and opt back in if they so choose. There's a very simple form and
So it's on the website?
It's on our website, and if they want to opt in or opt out, the form is there. They just need to fill it out.
I didn't know how I got on the system, so it just was automatic.
It was the way it was set up by the state, so that was there.
And we have one question from the audience. Okay.
Right.
Has there been any discussions expanding to tackle some of the last mile transmission?
And again, on the repeat of the
So-
question. yeah.
Yes. We're responsible for the generation portion of your energy. There's the transmission and the distribution, that is the poles and wires that carry it from the source to your home and then along from distances and then to your home. And the question was whether we were thinking of getting into the transmission and distribution side of the business, and that's not under consideration at this time, no.
Okay, well, thank you for your partnership with the town of Woodside and your commitment to clean energy and for the partnership with the solar panels that I think are going up this summer on this building. So,
We look forward to it and look forward to continuing warm relationship. Thanks so much.
yeah, thank you for being here. Okay, I think we're going to skip the town manager report, given that Kevin is not able to be with us tonight. So we'll jump to the consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be approved with one roll call motion unless a request is made in the meeting to withdraw an item or transfer to the regular agenda. Are there any consent agenda items from the council that you would like to have pulled?
And 6, please.
5 and 6. So anything beyond 5 and 6 that the public would like to have pulled? Okay, well then we'll entertain a motion for 1 through 4.
I move to approve consent calendar 1 through 4.
Second.
Councilmember Alberish,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Gold,
Yes.
Councilmember Wall, Mayor Domkowski.
Yes, all right, Mr. Gold.
For 5 and 6, I actually don't have any comments on it. I just pulled them in case there was any public comment.
Then we will go to public comment on 5 and 6. Mr. Middleman.
Good evening. Again,
Good evening.
David Middleman, 280 Grandview. Regarding item number 6, we should reconsider the junior ADU requirement in the current version of the ADU ordinance. A junior ADU, amongst other things, must be contained entirely within an existing or proposed main dwelling structure. The JADU requirement can have negative implications on the town if we want to maximize our ADU count to avoid multifamily housing in future cycles. Failure to meet this count could increase pressure for multifamily housing developments, potentially altering the town's character and increasing housing density. Two scenarios are most practical for adding ADUs to a property: new construction and future additions of an independent structure. It's crucial that our housing regulations align with the general plan, and the junior ADU requirement could disrupt this alignment. New construction requires that the primary residence to be larger to accommodate 2 units. A larger mass might be impossible on hillside lots, forcing the homeowner to leave an undeveloped ADU on the table. While the ADU plan pre-approval program, sorry, it's a mouthful. The process of adding independent additions has become significantly smoother. However, the junior ADU requirement could disrupt homeowners' plans. It would require them to remodel their primary residence, a task they may not have intended to undertake in the pursuit of helping the town avoid multifamily housing. There are 1,369 parcels in Woodside greater than or equal to 1 acre. These parcels could hold up to 4 ADUs. However, you cannot use a pre-approved ADU as a junior ADU. 1,369 is a significant number of potential ADUs that we could be missing out on, and it's essential to consider the homeowner's perspective. Finally, as I have sat with this ordinance and the requirements of HCD, I can't help but think this is not what we said we would do. The adopted housing element from July 2024 reads, the ordinance shall allow at least 4 ADUs on these qualifying properties when they can safely accommodate those ADUs. It does not delineate that 1 unit shall be a JADU and the other regular ADUs. I fear that if we adopt this ordinance as is, we will be back again in the coming weeks adopting another urgency ordinance to bring this housing element requirement into compliance. Please remove the JADU requirement from the ordinance with larger parcels and consider doing so for smaller ones as well. This small change will make a simpler, more interpretable code more defensible to HCD. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. I'll just mention that the purpose of this ordinance amendment is to comply with the program implementation schedule of the housing element. As I recall, we are going to be bringing back even parts of this amendment for further review in the coming months. So there will be another bite at the apple on a lot of this stuff. Thank you, though. Any other public comments? On 5 or 6, sorry. Thank you. Right, I see. Thank you, Jen. Okay, can we get a motion? Would you like to move?
I'll move approval of items 5 and 6.
And I'll second.
Jen?
Councilmember Alberish,
I'm sorry, could I propose a slight revision? I apologize if I'm speaking out of turn.
Of course.
Okay, so if we look at page 7 of 12 of this one,
Would 5 or 6?
for 6. I think it would be relatively simple to, and I thought we had discussed this during the last town council meeting, to possibly remove the junior requirement. And specifically as it relates to the over one acre. So if you look at page 7 of 12, and then there's the table, the very last set of boxes, if we just change the one on the right to a maximum of 4 accessory dwelling units, whether attached or detached, then it would just remove the junior accessory dwelling units requirements. I would propose that as a potential change, but I wanted to see if anyone else is open to that. I thought we had discussed it at the last one, and for some reason it didn't make it into the actual proposal.
We're going to get a little clarification from staff on what the direction was.
So the the direction was at the last meeting, there was a provision that one of the ADUs, not a JADU, but one of the ADUs had to be attached to the main residence, and that was specifically asked to be removed, and therefore any of the 3 ADUs could be attached or detached. It didn't have that requirement, so that was removed. The JADU, it's something that has to be allowed, and then just by its nature is attached to the main residence. So if the question is, you could add more ADUs to be allowed, but that would be a change to what was done.
Change is more permissive, actually.
Yes, it's more permissive than it was originally at the last meeting. Yes.
But less permissive than what he's asking.
I just ask for a clarification. Just, are you saying that by its nature, if something, a junior ADU has to be attached? If it's detached, it becomes just an ADU, like definitionally?
That's correct.
Does anybody have a strong view here?
I think given that we're going to bring this topic back, and I think, this is for us to comply with state law. I'm not opposed to the suggestion, but I just think like we would, legislating on the fly, particularly when it relates to like ADUs and whatnot, I think we need to take the time to like analyze the issue more, think about whether there would be any unintended impacts, but totally open to it. I appreciate the suggestion, but I'd hesitate to do it on the fly right now.
Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts? Yes.
Just to, so you don't like doing it as just changing. At this point, you'd rather have the hearing on. I'm fine with that too. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm with you.
I'd rather have a hearing also.
Okay. So I think what we're hearing is a great suggestion. We will we'll iterate on that because a lot of the stuff has to come back again.
Yes, we'll have continual ADU ordinance updates, and hearing what we're hearing today, staff will make sure that this topic is also discussed as we bring other items forward.
So
Thank you.
No, I think we need, yes, we need both. Yeah. would you like to make the motion?
Oh, I thought I did. but
Oh, yeah.
I'll move that we approve item 5 and 6. I think Hassan hit it.
I seconded it. I thought we all.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilmember Abarish,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Gold, Councilmember Wall, Mayor Domkowski.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, tonight we've got a public hearing on the implementation of cycle 6 of the housing element, including the adoption of an urgency ordinance or a standard ordinance to edit the multifamily code. And then we have objective design standards and parking standards that go along with that. And finally, a resolution proclaiming that we believe that we are substantially compliant to HCD. So I think these are technical changes. And so this is going to Jean.
Thank you very
Certainly.
much. I know this microphone's been problematic in the past, so if there's anyone in the room who can't hear me, or if you're having trouble, I'll switch microphones, but I'll start with this. So I'd like to just set the stage very quickly for your discussion by reminding you and everyone else who's listening for some background. The state imposed a deadline on local entities to approve an updated housing element for cycle 6 in January of 2023. The state also imposed a deadline on local entities to complete rezonings, and those needed to be completed in 2024. If you missed either one of those deadlines, then HCD will not find you to be substantially compliant on your housing element until you do both those things. You submit a housing element that they indicate is acceptable, and you complete any rezonings. And that's the position the town finds itself in. Because you did not adopt an updated housing element until 2024. It was July 23rd, 2024. So on July 30th, less than a week later, HCD issued a letter, which we've attached to your report as attachment 5, which indicated that the housing element met the statutory requirements, but you needed to complete those rezonings in order to get a letter indicating you were substantially compliant, according to the state. The rezonings that you needed to do were completed on September 24th of 2024, and those rezonings created a multifamily zone for 3 properties on which you indicated in your zoning ordinance you would allow up to 20 units per acre. Those 3 properties, 2 of which are owned by the town and 1 of which are private, are as follows. High Road, at which you proposed a total of 16 units. Ramundo, at which you proposed a total of 17 units, and those are a mix of low, very low, and moderate income. And then a privately owned property at 773 Kenyatta, which is all moderate. And that makes a difference in what we're bringing forward to you this evening, that distinction in the kind of units that are proposed for those 3 sites. So those rezonings were sent to HCD. We anticipated getting a letter back from HCD saying that your housing element was compliant and we would be done. What we received instead was an indication back from HCD that there were 2 issues that were still outstanding and needed to be addressed before they would issue a letter of substantial compliance. One dealt with your objective design standards and parking related to those, which they view as written being a barrier to development. I'll talk about that secondly. And they also indicated that there is a particular government code section, it's Government Code 65583.2H, which requires that for multifamily projects where you have low and very low income units, you need to have a minimum density of 20 units per acre. And as you recall, yours says up to 20 per acre. So we immediately contacted HCD and said, wait a second. Something doesn't make sense to us here. You've seen the ordinance, you've bought off on the housing element already, and if you require this of us, the projects which were proposed, which were vetted to the public and which the council approved, can't be built. So we worked with HCD, and HCD agreed that if we made the changes, which you will see in attachment 1 to the staff report, they would determine that you are in substantial compliance. So let me explain, or try to explain clearly, what those exceptions are. So If you amend tonight, either by an urgency ordinance or by a first reading of a regular adoption process, an amendment to section 153.102E, and that's your zoning that creates your multifamily districts, then you will be allowed to develop at the densities you propose to the public and that you approved those projects that are low and moderate income. That's the High Road in Raimondo. I want to make absolutely clear, this is an attempt to keep those projects at that level and not require that they be increased to 20 units per acre. And so if you look at the language, which you will see at page 3 of attachment 1, that would do that for you. Because what we're doing is addressing the low and very low income. And what we've told HCD is we are delivering projects if and when they are built that will have a greater amount of low and very low income housing than is absolutely required by that government code section. So with this change in language, you can still build those projects at the densities that you had proposed and your housing element calls for. That leaves the 773 Kenyatta. That one we'd like to deal with separately, and the reason for that is a moderate income project. That is not what HCD is concerned about. But you do not want to have that increase in density either, because under your housing element, that's talked about as being at 16 units. So we will bring you back a separate zoning amendment to deal with that piece of property, and we anticipate doing that, I think maybe as early as your next meeting. But this is the more critical path because these are the two projects that are holding up HCD determining you to be in substantial compliance. So what we are asking is for you to consider adopting this change, which again, I want to reiterate and assure the public will not increase the density of either one of those projects. But if you adopt this by way of an urgency ordinance, it will go into effect immediately, which means we can get it to HCD. They can look at it more quickly. They can then determine that you will be in substantial compliance. And they have assured us by way of the letter, which you see as attachment 10, that with this change, and you're addressing the parking standards, which I'll explain in a moment, they would find you in substantial compliance. It's important to get into substantial compliance because until you are subject to all of the penalties which we've outlined for you previously, which could be imposed by the state. And you're also subject to builder's remedy projects. And so we want to make sure we get you to substantial compliance as quickly as we can to stop that calendar from running. On the parking, what they're asking for is, and this is the resolution that you see in your packet. I think it's attachment 3. This would amend the parking standards in that multifamily zone so that you would be requiring 1 space per bedroom with a 2-space maximum rather than a flat 2 spaces per unit, which HCD has determined in their mind is a barrier to development. Those are the 2 actions which we are asking you to take this evening. There's a third item in your packet, which you can choose to adopt or not. It's a statement of principle, basically, where we are just expressing to HCD the fact that we really think we were in compliance as of September 24th. But our opinion about compliance is not what drives the final result. It is HCD's. But it is your opportunity, should you choose to do so, to make a principled statement about your actions to date and why we ourselves believe that we are in compliance. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. The planning director is here as well. With that, I'll just be open to those questions.
Okay, Councilmember Gold.
Thank you for the superb explanation. I mean, that was as clear as a bell, so I do appreciate it because it has been a confusing few weeks here and a lot of misinformation out there. So I appreciate that. So I just, one of the questions I have, could you repeat again I'm going to ask you to repeat one thing that you've already said twice, but I think it's worth repeating. But before you do that, the parking space issue, could you just go over that? That's the only part that's a little blurry to me there that the HCD requested.
Yeah, I will attempt, and then I may have to turn that over to the planning director. What HCD is indicating is if you impose a flat 2 space per unit, They view that as an impediment to development, as opposed to saying what they would like to see is that your requirement is 1 space per bedroom with a maximum of 2 spaces.
And yes, that's correct. And just to add on to that is what their example was, if you had like a studio apartment or a 1 bedroom, it was overburdensome to require 2 parking spaces. So therefore, that's where came up with the 1 per bedroom, but then still the maximum of 2. So we're not changing that standard. So it was just to ensure these much smaller units did not have to have 2 spaces.
So this is part of Sacramento's theme that they don't want to do anything that makes it more difficult to develop it. So,
That's correct.
Okay, I'm clear on that now. And the second part, which you've now, as I said, have said twice, and I note in the one of the whereases that this doesn't change, this will not alter the town's plan for 16 units at High Road and 17 units at Raimundo Drive, which is what people I think are concerned about. Frankly, what I'm concerned about too. And HCD's letter did give me a little bit more comfort now that they've said if you do X, they will do Y, which they haven't said before, which I think is a significant change. But maybe this is a question that can't really be answered very well, but if we make this change and HCD comes back and says, now your plans are inconsistent, we want them to be 20. I know we're doing this carve out for the, assuming that they're affordable, but what do we do at that point? I mean, they've moved the goal, they have a habit of moving the goalposts here, and I'm concerned about, I'm less concerned about it today than I was a month ago, but I'm still concerned.
Well, if we move the goalposts, I just have to be honest, we'll be back. I don't see it based on the conversations that we've had with HCD.
And the letter.
And the letter, and the fact that they were just hung up on the fact that the government code has this particular sentence in it, that section of the government code I read to you. And they felt that unless they had that language in the rezoning, they could not sign off on it, even though they'd signed off on the projects at a lower than 20 unit per acre density.
That's fair. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Councilmember Aparish, you are off mute. Do you have a question?
Thank you. Yes. Is there any, I believe this question is for Jean, is there any administrative process to challenge the HCD's interpretation of the law?
No.
Okay. And then, thank you. My next question would be, so there was a suggestion, I think you just discussed it too, adopting a draft amendment for rezoning that would affect that third property. That we would, let's see, for Cañada Road. Is there any chance that potential amendment would affect the HCD's finding of substantial compliance that we anticipate given their interpretation of the government code?
No, because what they're worried about is addressing low and very low income projects. That's a moderate income project. And that is not one that they talked to us about, brought to our attention when they gave us their comments back. They were really talking about the High and Raimundo sites.
Great, thank you. And so for the standard ordinance, if we did not pass the urgency ordinance for the standard ordinance, would that be voted on in exactly 2 weeks?
If you do not adopt an urgency ordinance, and that takes 4 votes, and you want instead to adopt this in the 2-step process that we normally do, then you would introduce tonight, and it would come back to you in 2 weeks for a second reading and adoption. It would not be effective until 30 days thereafter, whereas opposed to an urgency ordinance goes into effect immediately.
Got it. Thank you. And would that create a risk, that additional amount of time? So that would be effectively 6 weeks. Would there be a risk of additional builder's remedy applications coming in that amount of time?
Yes, there would be.
Okay, thank you. And the last one, for the resolution number, the attachment 4, disputing the findings, is there anywhere we could send that, or could we direct a copy to the governor's office or somewhere else to ensure that they see it?
We could do that. I would suggest we get HCD's comments back first, and there's substantial compliance finding.
Got it. Thank you.
Councilmember Wall.
Yeah, thank you, Jean. Very clear presentation of a very frustrating situation. So I feel like this substantial compliance, this phrase we've been living with for a few years now, it's like this leprechaun we're chasing. And I realize as I sit here right now, it's like, what exactly, like really in like concrete terms, does it mean? Like, when will we know that we're in substantial compliance? Is it like, is it something on the website? Is it a letter? Like, what exactly is it? Because I just want to know, like, the moment that we will be considered in substantial compliance.
We will get a letter and you will go on the HCD website and we will move to the substantially compliant definition.
So it's the website. Once the website shows it, we are in, or is it the letter? Like, what is it?
Whichever we get first is what we're going to say it is.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Brown.
Yeah, do we have any idea of any other communities that have gone through this whack-a-mole, move the goalposts problems that we seem to be running up the last year now?
Yes,
Yes?
yes, this
What has their experience been on challenging any of it, or they have to just roll over and take it?
our experience has looked very much like experiences of other communities on the peninsula where we've consulted with their staff. And in many of those, they've gotten to yes, and we are hoping this gets us to yes.
Okay. I'm just concerned that we're going to have the same conversation another month from now. And then next question on 773. Are we sure that they're not going to come back to us and say, well, you know, we really want it to be 20? Even though it's, you assume it's because it's moderate, they're not going to worry about it, but do we know that for a fact that they're not going to worry about it as low or non-low?
They did not raise it, and that is, and their only concern dealt with the low and very low income projects.
But they haven't raised.
And
the
they're
other issues
allowing us,
before.
and they are allowing us the exception to build those at less than 20, because we're delivering a higher level of affordability.
Well,
Either all
I hear you,
or moderate.
Gina. I'm just worried that we're dealing with two issues that apparently were not raised before, that have been sitting on the table in front of them for a long time. This one's been sitting there for a long time, and I'm worried that they're going to turn around and after approving these, that, well, now I think now maybe you need to do something about 773. So I just-
They've not raised any issue about that, and as I said, that is not a project that would be governed by this particular government code section that they're referencing, because that section deals with low and very low income projects.
Would it be useful to confirm with somebody that that's going to be the case? An HCD?
I think we addressed the two issues they raised, and they have indicated by the language which we're showing you that will address their issues.
I'll just add that with our conversation with them, I mean, it was specifically noted that the moderate income was not something that we had to worry about with this code change.
I'll take a lawyer's cop out and say, well, I'll wait and see on that one. And the parking issue come up before? I wonder why all of a sudden it's popped up now at the very, very end of all of our conversations.
The number of parking spaces just wasn't, I think, discussed at any level before. So with our objective design standards, that's what we proposed, that's what we approved. They then reviewed them and felt it was overburdensome. So
They'd seen it in writing before, but they just didn't really catch it.
this was the first time they saw the objective design standard.
Well, it's the first time they've seen it. Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. No further questions here then, so we'll open up public comment. Anyone in the room that would like to kick us off? Ms. Paletti?
Better this way. Well, Happy New Year. Congratulations, Mayor, and thank you for your term. And to our new council member, hello, and Sage, glad to see that you're feeling better. Sorry, Kevin's still not feeling well. The strict understanding and application of the fire code is critical to our health and safety. The intent of the fire code is to ensure the balance between density, fire apparatus access, and evacuation. It protects both lives and property. Selecting a site should have started with a blank piece of paper and then a list of the fundamental criteria for the site, not the least of which should have been compliance with the fire code, especially with the site known to be located in a very high fire severity area. Who has that responsibility? Specific actions and discussions call into question whether the fire code has been fully understood and will be properly applied. For example, certain parts of the code had to be brought to the attention of responsible people by citizens. There was arbitrary debate where none was appropriate or necessary. It was clear that there was not a core understanding and intent to apply the code as written. How could we possibly get this far into a process that has ignored and failed to understand the fire code? It is your responsibility to the citizens of this project that this project is fully compliant with all elements of the fire code. What I just said was that this project was flawed from the start because it did not take into account the crucial requirements of compliance with the fire code in order to develop the site. And it progressed down the path. The people responsible failed to recognize where they were headed. Now we have a problem that could have been avoided with the selection of a more viable site. Yes, we're here tonight trying to decide whether it's 17 or 20, urgent or not, how many units, but that does not address the fundamental flaw with the project. It misses by a mile. The answer that meets the fire requirement is 0 units. The best answer would be to put the time and energy into another site that would be compliant. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. There you go.
I'd like to put my written speech in for the record. To whom do I give that? Jennifer?
Yeah, thanks. Okay, we'll go to the Zoom room. Ms. Strauss, you have your hand up.
Hi, good evening.
Sorry, my apologies.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Ariel Strauss. I'm attorney at Greenfire Law representing Armando Drive residents. And I want to draw your attention to 2 problems with the Armando Drive multifamily project. First, allowing apartments on Armando would violate CEQA unless there's a supplemental analysis or off-site upgrades. To be valid, CEQA mitigations must be realistic. And the EIR at page 3.10-18 expressly declares the Armando parcel new fire risk is mitigated by compliance with the Fire Code Appendix D, including for streets, quote, where a fire hydrant is located on a fire apparatus access road, the minimum road width shall be 26 feet, end quote. However, Armando Drive is at most 20 feet wide, and the dead-end cul-de-sac is half the dimension of the code requirement. So adding more residential units will also be inconsistent with the level of access dictated by Fire Code D107.1 of 2 separate and approved fire apparatus access roads. Contrary to Section 5 of the draft ordinance, the town's failure to implement the project as anticipated EIR would be a substantial change that would require amended or supplemental CEQA review as the project goes forward. Second, I understand some residents may have the impression that, notwithstanding the ordinance, the town will prevent the project from being built somehow. But HCD specifically held up approval of the housing element to obtain the town's assurance that Armando will have a minimum density. It seems improbable, with the town already under HCD scrutiny, that HCD will let the town get away with not developing the site in good faith unless there is an applicable objective basis, such as a fire safety. Under the Housing Crisis Act of 2019, if the city enacts the upzoning ordinance objective standards, the city will be obligated to quickly and ministerially approve an application unless, in the language of statute, it will have, quote, a significant, quantifiable, direct, and unavoidable impact based on objective, identified, written public health or safety standards, end quote. It's quite a mouthful. But of course, Fire Code D107.1 is precisely such a standard. However, if the town later seeks to condition the project on this basis, I'm concerned it could open up the town to loss with the developer, which is entitled to recoup legal fees under the Housing Crisis Act, and will point out the town did not include an access road in the objective conditions as proposed today. The objective conditions should add that the Armando Drive parcel development shall comply with Fire Code D107. It requires a new separate fire apparatus access road distinct from existing Runnymede Armando Drive, which is over its legal limit for sole service to 30 dwellings. I look forward to confirmation they will add objective criteria requiring a new fire apparatus qualified road, separate from the existing Runnymede Raimondo Drive, as a condition of development to comply with the fire code and a CEQA EIR. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Strauss. Gene, seen both these speakers back to back. I just wanted to hear both before asking the question, but the emergency evacuation routes were studied in the EIR and determined to be less significant with mitigation, and that there will be design specific project-based reviews, if you will, before anything would go forward that would include this second evac route that has been brought up a couple times here. Is that fair, or?
That's fair. And
We have no
that was a
project.
programmatic EIR.
Right.
When a project is proposed, that is the time at which you will again consider the issue of second access, which you also had as part of your findings in approving your housing element, that you instructed that a second access road be looked at. Let me also say, for the issues that are being raised by the last speaker, you certified the EIR in July, and there is no change to any of the projects that are being proposed, and so there's no additional review of CEQA that's necessary at this point, and that's reflected in the resolution for the design standards change and also in the amendment to the ordinance. And I'm conveying those remarks tonight because Matt Francois, your CEQA attorney, is detained in Southern California. He couldn't be with us tonight.
Yeah, of course, of course. Next time that might come under review and there's an actual project, then we would revisit all of that.
That's correct. Absolutely.
But until then, there's nothing.
That's correct.
Welcome. Thank you.
Good evening. I'd like to give my time to Sue Paletti.
Okay.
Thank you, Christine. I just had a question about what Jean was talking about. You talked about evacuation. The fire code clearly states that where you have a single access road with 30 dwellings, which Raimondo and Runnymede have with their homes, ADUs, and cottages, that any more development, if we put one more home, it would require a separate new fire apparatus access road. So we're doing this backwards. We're saying, oh, we're going to get a project and then we'll look at it and decide. No, you have to, we need to know, do you have plans for that? Do you have plans for that access road? Sorry.
It's okay.
Where exactly would this road be? And it has to be, per the code, a valid fire apparatus access road. And in the code, there are specific requirements for the description of that. So I do not believe that this issue has been solved yet. And I don't know that HCD is aware that we have that project substantially incompliant, absolutely violates the fire code as written. It says it has 2 access points to Raimondo. You can't have any access point to Raimondo. We're already at our legal limit. I don't know why you don't understand that. It's clearly written in the code. I think we've rushed through this and through a 1 o'clock meeting, and we're trying to push this through. We're already a year past compliance with the housing. We need to take our time and really look at this. Can Raimondo Drive really comply with the fire code? That's my question, and it has to. And we're going to take you to task on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Appreciate the tenacity on the topic. And we have met, as you're well aware, and discussed many of these issues. And I don't know if we want to get into interpretation of fire code at this meeting. I'm guessing not. But I have assured you that in writing that we will abide by all fire code, by all rules and regulations in the community. And so if a project presents itself that can accommodate all those issues, that's what it is. Yeah, Sue, one last one. I know, you've been on the front line on this. I appreciate it.
Sage Fire.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. I'll take my husband's time. He was going to come, but he hasn't showed up yet.
Okay.
Now I lost my train of thought. What did you just say? We
Just giving you
talked
ass-
about
we
the,
Gave you assurances in writing that we're going to abide by all.
yes,
appropriate regulations.
and in fact, we can't really talk tonight about interpreting the fire code that nobody in this room has the authority to interpret the fire code, but the fire code officials. And my concern is that we have a clear understanding of the fire code. Because when we started out, it was, well, we'll talk about parcels. Well, the fire code doesn't mention parcels. It mentions dwellings. We ran through a EIR, 7, 8 inches thick, 3 binders, not one mention of fire code D107. A layperson had to bring that to your attention. So I don't believe we still yet have a clear understanding of the fire code. And we are going to hold you to that. If we have to do a writ of mandamus, we're not going to stop because we believe, as written, the Raimondo parcel violates the fire code. Thank you. And that's it.
And I'll just reiterate again, we always obey the law and we will follow what the code says that we have to do. Any other public comments? Hey, Ms. Hanson.
Okay, so I wanted to thank the council members who had some of the same concerns that I have. I know if my kids say that they are going to substantially be in compliance and cleaning their rooms, it sucks. I don't know if this is just a legal term, but I'm uncomfortable with that. Councilmember Gould also had said, you know, are we really going to get to a quid pro quo instead of this constant, if we do this, you get nothing? I'd like for Sage to answer how many times we have submitted plans and housing element proposals and gotten more comments back. I feel like we are at the point that we should use stronger language, somehow get a commitment from HCD that this is it. I don't know how you do that, but that's my request. And I'm just super uncomfortable with this squishy language. Even if it's legal, a layperson, it's just too squishy. I also liked Councilmember Brown's comment. Do we have to take this? Do we all have to take this? I think we're all feeling the same thing, and I think we all get it, and I'm super uncomfortable about that. I also think I like this idea that Attorney Jean had said, that we have this possibility to have a statement of principle. Like, this is a really important moment with all the tragedies in LA. I don't know about the rest of you, but our family has some really personal connections there. And I think this is our moment when there's a possibility that our elected officials will listen, or at least listen for a little while. I feel like we as a town have the opportunity to figure out how we can have a statement of principle. So I liked that idea too. And I hope that we get complete compliance and not just substantial compliance with this adoption of this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. We do too. And I think what you're hearing from the council is shared frustration on the exact same issue. Sage, we are 30 months into it. I don't know if we actually have an accurate count of how much back and forth. It's been a frustrating experience for sure. Do you have any color you want to throw on that?
I mean, we've had informal submittals and formal submittals. I think we're at about 4 or 5 formal submittals. And that was, some of them was very minor stuff.
Yeah. It does to all of us, yeah. Okay, well, thanks for your advocacy on the statement of principle. Well, any other public comments? Mr. Middleman.
I just have a simple question because I didn't quite follow the explanation. With this change, I get that Raimondo and High Road are town-owned sites, but what's to prevent 773 Kenyatta from changing their plans in increasing the density.
You want to go back on the moderate issue?
Yes, we'll be bringing back a zoning ordinance amendment to limit that site to the 16 that's proposed in the housing element. And we could do that probably perhaps as early as the next meeting.
The answer is we can just do it. Thank you. Any other public comments? Okay, thank you all. Appreciate it. We'll close comment and we'll go to deliberation. You look like you're ready, sir.
I'm always ready.
Okay, we'll start with you.
I did want to address a couple of the things that have come up here. And I wanted to read specifically, by the way, it's fair to say nobody has been more negative on this issue than me. I voted no on, much to the dismay of my fellow council members, on every single proposal, and was joined by the current mayor on one of those, the one specifically on Raimundo Road. So, I mean, I don't really take a backseat to anybody. My skepticism on this is high. And I've made it pretty well known that unless I get appropriate assurances, I'm not going to really change my position. But I think I have those assurances, and they actually don't come from staff, they come from HCD. So I would like to read that one sentence of the letter that came from HCD, because it's a notable, significant change from anything we've received from them before. I mean, it's fair to say this is big. And so I do want to read from the most recent letter that they wrote. I don't have to read everything here, but they said, look, in the past you've been found in, you could not be found in substantial compliance, even though you met the statutory requirements. But, and here's the key sentence that they said, at the same time, HCD has reviewed the draft revisions to the ordinances and resolutions, and these revisions meet all statutory requirements. As a result, the housing element will substantially comply with state housing element law upon adoption of the draft revisions. So they're telling us that they have now seen these, which they've never said before, and they said, if you adopt them, you are in substantial compliance, which are the key words we're looking for, so that we can move from one side of that website to the other and stop any, the hanky-panky that's been going on with the builder's remedy, and we want to be in compliance. So I have to tell you that I've been on record as saying that I don't really care so much what the state does, as I said, much to the dismay of my fellow council members, but I am concerned about the builder's remedy. It is a real threat, and we need to get this thing approved so that we can end this nonsense that we're going to be plagued by. And you're going to hear some stuff in the future that is going to make your hair stand on end, and it's not good. We need to stop it, and I am all in favor of this with this one sentence that came from HCD. To me, that actually moved the needle for me. I did want to address, I think Mr. Middleman had brought it up about what happens with 773. I would just point out that the owner of that parcel could build whatever he wants on that spot today. We are out of compliance, and he could say, I'm putting a builder's remedy at 773, and I'm building a 50-story high-rise, and the first 10 of them are going to be for low-income housing, and we would have no choice but to approve it. So the fact that we're very fortunate that the owner of that parcel has been a mensch, if you will, and has been very compliant, very sympathetic to the neighbors' demands and needs, has been, has made accommodations, and does not appear to have any intentions. In fact, he seems to be going in the other direction. Well, I don't want to name names here, but is going in the other direction to, I think, be a good neighbor as a Woodside resident. So I appreciate that. So I did want to address that directly. The fires in Southern California are a big deal, and it has certainly reminded all of us. I did want to address the fire issue that Ms. Paletti has brought up repeatedly, and I'm 100% with you, but there is no project before us. This is a zoning change. So I understand your point, and I think that if anybody who lives on, if you're correct, and anybody on Raimundo proposes putting in an ADU and takes us from 30 to 31, that may very well trigger it. So you may have a project out there from some other homeowner, not from this particular town-owned parcel. So it is very possible, but until that happens, there's really nothing for us to do. I mean, I think that exists on a lot of roads, and maybe they have 15 and we don't have to worry about it until they get to 30 or 31. If your interpretation is in fact correct, an accurate reflection of what the fire marshal has said. I don't doubt that for a minute. But until then, we don't have a project before us, so there's really nothing for us to do until that moment. I did want to come back to the Pacific Palisades thing, and I hope you'll forgive me here for just a moment where this is going pretty quickly here. But I did want to read something that came out in Saturday's Washington Post, why Los Angeles was unprepared for this fire. It was a very interesting article. And I think that it reads on this, and I really appreciated what the mayor said earlier about the fires and his communications with our elected officials, because if what's going on in Southern California doesn't change what's going on in Sacramento with these insane changes in density and build everywhere and we don't care, and let's put them in the forest and let's put them on the beach and let's build high rises everywhere. If this doesn't change it, I honestly don't know what will. But I wanted to read just a couple of sentences from this particular article. Experts have said several key factors contributed to the fire. The number one factor that they pointed out, they named the experts here, I'm going to spare you that, was urban sprawl. One of them, Timothy Inglesby, who's the executive director of the Firefighters United for Safety, Ethics and Ecology, said, decades before we knew about climate change, we knew about this urban sprawl was a big deal and would lead to this. The planning flaws that exacerbated the wildfires have long plagued Southern California. The two communities decimated by the fires, Altadena and Pacific Palisades, were built decades ago. Listen to these words, because boy, does this describe Woodside. Were built decades ago at the foothills of mountains that frequently burn. Dotted with single-family homes lining narrow, winding streets, they are difficult to defend and difficult to evacuate. As of Saturday morning, more than 70% of the burned areas in Los Angeles County fell into zones the state determined had a very high fire risk, according to the Washington Post analysis, according to CAL FIRE. The Palisades fire spread across an area that was almost entirely deemed high risk. Molly Mowry, the author of the 2020 report for Los Angeles County on how to reduce wildfire risk, said that the county now takes wildfire into account when reviewing new housing development plans. They do, Sacramento apparently does not. The problem, she said, is that nearly 90% of the county's housing stock was built before 1990, before many subdivisions or building code requirements for wildlife hazards took effect. Once fire enters these communities, the homes are the fuel. We're just seeing the culmination of factors of decades of development. Nick Artson, who's a town council member from Altadena, where thousands of homes, businesses, and restaurants and parks were lost in the Eaton fire, said the unincorporated community in Los Angeles County was trying to address fire risks. Less than a month ago, the town council chair wrote a letter to Los Angeles County Supervisor Catherine Barger recommending she adopt a controversial land use plan that would direct development away from the Altadena foothills and away from other high fire hazard risk areas. We knew prior to this event that if a fire starts, it's pretty much impossible to stop, said Artson, who lost his home in the blaze. We're now trying to address it, but we just missed it. So I think that this describes Woodside really well. And the reason that I brought this up, and I appreciate you allowing me the few minutes here just to make a small tangent about this, which is not related necessarily to zoning, is we have to this fire has to send a message to our assembly members and our senators and our governor that this insanity about building everywhere has to stop. Communities are different. Woodside is different. You want to build them along the transportation corridor where the trains are? I'm all for it. It can be defended. They're not vulnerable. But we're going to end up with another Altadena. We're just like Altadena. I don't know if you've ever been out just on that side of Pasadena. We're not that different from it, and we need to do something. And I think that this insanity really has to stop. I don't know that it addresses High Road or Raimundo, but it addresses Woodside for sure because we have such a high fuel level here. The last thing that I wanted to mention was that the mayor has given his word, and he gave it in writing, that we are going to abide by all laws and regulations. And Brian's word is good enough for me. I mean, that's the town's imprint on this. And we're not about to do something here that I think is illegal. So I mean, I know, I'm going on record as saying I would never support something that, that the fire marshal didn't support or that violated any rules or laws. I'm sure that's going to be reflected by my fellow council members. So I think that you can have that. This is about zoning. And this is about carving out a little exception here so that we actually can come in compliance on High Road and Running and Raimundo specifically, so that we can get this stamp of approval from HCD, so that we can get compliance, so we can stop the builder's remedy and return to some level of normalcy and discuss just the normal, horses against bicycle stuff that we normally do here. And I think that we can get back to that and sort of put this housing element behind us for just a little bit. So I'm in complete support of that. I'm complete support of the resolutions. Which is something I haven't been in the past. I am now because we need to get this stuff. Thank you.
Councilmember Avarish, we'll jump over to you. We'll follow the sequence here.
Thank you. Yeah, so hard to follow Councilmember Gold. That's but I do share quite a few of the same sentiments. I am not generally a fan of the housing element generally and being forced to build. That said, I think it's really important that we comply with it and that we have a plan that's approved as soon as possible. I share everyone's frustration that with the HCD's unwillingness to grant it and to be reasonable, and their interpretations are quite frustrating, especially as a lawyer who interprets the laws for a living as part of my job. But so I don't quite understand their interpretation of the government code here. So with all that said, I think I strongly feel we need to pass the urgency ordinance and move forward so we can close this chapter and not deal with it, not have any new builder's remedy issues come up while we're waiting for HCD. I also, I agree with resolution 3. I think we just need to do it on the same thread, just to get this through. And then the last one for the resolution number 4. I think that's a good idea. I would like to pass that, and I think it's important to address it. And the issues with the HCD's interpretation that just has no bearing on, or it essentially ignores the language in the law. So I think it's important to address it, and I appreciate our attorney for putting that together.
Great, thank you, Councilman. Jen, you want to go next? Councilmember Wall.
Okay. So yeah, I'm supportive of the urgency ordinance. I'd like to give kudos to staff and our town attorney. This is a really elegant solution to an otherwise incredibly frustrating problem. I just really like to highlight the fact that we are both rezoning the 2 properties, the Raimundo and the High Road, to meet the needs of HCD, but at the same time, we've designed what I view as a pretty elegant carve out to allow the town council to approve the emergency ordinance, avoid a builder's remedy project, get us in compliance. And so really nothing is changing. All we're doing is trying to continue to oar the boat towards substantial compliance, which will hopefully happen ASAP. What else? So yeah, the LA fires, obviously a super sad situation. But listen, the town of Woodside already very much has our eye on the ball when it comes to fire safety. Fire safety is one of our town goals. So back in December, the town council got together and came up with a list of what are our top goals, and fire safety is on that list. And so I bristle a little bit at the idea of using the the LA fires as a way to criticize. I mean, look, we can all criticize the, there's definitely criticism to be found of our state legislators. But I bristle a little bit at the notion of using the LA fires as a way to rail against legislators trying to solve what is a legitimate problem, which is affordable housing. Both can be true. We can have serious issues with fire safety, and we can also have serious issues with affordable housing. And so I just wanted to point that out. And Sue, thank you very much for your comments. I appreciate and actually like the idea of you, in your words, you holding us to it. Because I can assure you, I very much would never support anything that's not compliant with our fire code. And I think all of us on the council have the integrity to do the same thing. And so really where I land on that is that, again, there is no project before us. This is a rezoning. And so when we have a project before us for which we have to consider fire code compliance, we most certainly will. So, yep, I'm supportive of the emergency ordinance, and I'm also supportive of the resolution. The policy statement, just talking about us being in substantial compliance. So, there you go.
Thank you, Council Member Wall and Council Member Brown.
Okay, yeah, I'd like to, and thank you, Paul, for bringing up that quote from HCD. And I want to ask that when we send a reply to HCD, that we attach the quote to the letter. It says, this is what we're expecting from you. You said this was going to be enough, and we're going to hold you to that. I mean, literally, I'd like to be that hard on it. I'm tired of rolling over and over and over and over on these guys. I know we got to settle, got to get this over with, but I think I'd like to see that done. And the second thing, I just want to reiterate Brian's comment about the county and everybody else starting to get involved with what can we do about fire. I'm all for that, and I think we ought to put that as our #1 priority for this town over the next couple of years, is to work with anyone and everyone who is willing to sit down, talk about how can we do something, how can we influence Sacramento to do something. I mean, literally, some of this goes back 50, 60 years ago when California started growing from 20 to 40 million, and we didn't do anything to change our water supply. Same water supply today we had 40 years ago. And I mean, there's a lot of other things that contributed to where we are today. And Woodside, as Paul pointed out, is very, very vulnerable. I'm very concerned about all the open space around us. What are they doing? And I've been told in the past that they aren't doing a lot to mitigate their issues. And that's a whole lot of open space that is not being protected from fire. So we got a lot to do. I'd like to see us take as a council. What are all the things we can do? And one thing, I've already reached out to Woodside Fire, who's talking this Thursday about home injury protection. But I think the next issue, next meeting we should have is what can we do to help more on fire protection at home, and then really put everybody's feet to the fire about statewide, what can we do? So yes, I'm in favor.
Great, thank you, appreciate it. I do want to also thank everyone for coming out and for your advocacy tonight and over a very long period of time. Look, we're in rapid editing mode now. That's basically what this is. And so I'm in favor of the urgent course. It tightens the turnaround a bit, and that makes the most sense to me. And I think it's also justified because we're making what I would view as non-substantive language changes at this point, and they can just be handled by council. I agree. I think it's a very elegant solution that's come up. I think the word carve out was actually quite perfect. But I agree with that, and I also agree with adopting the statement of principle that we view ourselves as being in full compliance, and let everybody know where we stand. And stakes are rising quite significantly real time from these seemingly endless reviews and iterations. And so I'm glad that everybody, both on the content here and on principle, is, I believe, quite aligned on where we're going. So I think the first step is to ask for the urgency ordinance. We get a motion on the urgency ordinance.
Make a motion to approve the adoption of an urgency ordinance amending the classification of the multifamily residential district under Woodside Municipal Code, Chapter 153, Section 153.02E.
Can we get a second?
Second that?
Jen?
Councilmember Alberish,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Gold, Councilmember Wall,
Yes.
Mayor Domkowski.
Yes, thank you.
Since we have 5 votes, it's done.
All right. So you want to make the resolution?
Sure. Can I do these? Yeah, I think
well,
I have to do them
wonder,
separately.
we had a motion from, or an ask for an edit to incorporate the exact quote from the letter in number
Yeah.
4. I don't know how everybody feels about that, but
I don't know you have to vote on that. I just ask that we put it in the letter.
I think we're agreeing to the letter as in.
Yes, I think
It-
it's going to send the transmittal letter to HCD. We understood that you wanted us to remind them what they had said, yes.
okay.
Okay, so I move to approve a resolution amending the objective design standards. The following multifamily sites identified in the town's housing element. Those are the sites commonly referred to as Raimundo and High Road. Do I need to also mention Kenyatta Road? And 773 Kenyatta Road.
I'll second that.
Councilmember Alberish,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Gold, Councilmember Wall,
Yes.
Mayor Domkowski.
Yes. And trifecta.
So I would also move to approve a resolution of the town council of the town of Woodside disputing the findings described in the December 6th, 2024 letter from the California Department of Housing and Community Development, indicating that the town's adopted Cycle 6 housing element does not yet substantially comply with state housing element law.
I'll second it.
Councilmember Alberish,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Gold,
Yes.
Councilmember Wall,
Yes.
Mayor Domkowski.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Moving on to council appointments. So there's a spreadsheet in your packet, and thank you all for all the hard work you do on these respective committees. 3 quick items I wanted to highlight from that. One is that there's the formation of a new ad hoc committee there to explore shared services and potential cost savings with Portola Valley in light of everything that's happening there that you might have read about. That's a subcommittee that we were asked to form by Supervisor Mueller, and that'll meet on an ad hoc basis to explore what, if any, cost synergies might be achievable between the 2 communities. Secondly, now that we're a 5-person council, the other sort of big change is that we can't have 3 people on a subcommittee anymore. So that would be a majority. So you've seen that evolution where we're down to 2 folks on each of these subcommittees that are ad hoc. And then also, because we're only 5 of us now, that is a lot of ground to cover. And we need to be realistic about that. So I just wanted to say, hey, if you can go to the meeting, great. If you can Zoom in, great. If you can make it once a quarter, great. But from an expectations point of view, if you could just review the agenda, interact with the chair when we need to interact, and to elevate things back to council that need to be elevated, that's basically the table stakes that we need to be for connectivity. So I just wanted to sort of reset that bar a little bit now that we're down to 5 people with a lot of ground to cover. Were there any questions on the spreadsheet?
We find the time to do all this.
Well, that's why I wanted to reset what we can do. We have a lot of demands on our time for sure that's already placed upon us. Okay, then moving on to council communications. Anybody have anything they want to share?
Sorry, I had one issue on the table.
Yeah.
I'm just a little tiny bit concerned because I need to run it by my firm to make sure I don't have a conflict of interest before becoming joining the board of directors for the Peninsula Clean Energy. I have no personal objection to it. I just want to make sure. I don't know if there's a way to are we voting on this tonight? And like, is there a way for me to do anything if
I
I have a
don't look
conflict.
at this as something that's formal. This is not, no, this is not really formal. So if you're unable to, you find out you can't, we'll just let me know.
Okay,
We'll figure it out.
thank you. Great.
Thank you. Council communications. Anyone? Sir?
Then to thank the town attorney for the work she did on this tonight. It was very, very helpful. Appreciate it.
It takes a village. It was not,
I know staff
it was not just me.
there, but you made the presentation. You get the
thank you.
glory.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year. Councilmember Abarish, anything? No? Okay.
Could get better.
Thank you.
Yeah, just a couple of things. I just wanted to reiterate that we will sort of work through a speakers series here on the issue of fire prevention and mitigation. Separately, I've been asked by the school board to speak about the housing element and what that might mean to enrollment over time. So I'll be doing that sometime in February. I also might mention to them the one-off opportunity that will never exist again for free land from the town of Woodside for teacher housing. And finally, I did participate in the city selection meeting for the county on Woodside's behalf and tried to do my best to pick the right people to represent what we want them to do for us. And I do have one controversial thing I just want to throw out for you to think about. We've been asked by the county whether we would be interested in having a no confidence vote in the sheriff. And so I'm not asking for any opinions tonight. I just wanted to publicly throw that at you, and we'll figure out how best to sort of collect your thoughts on that issue, but that is a potentially controversial issue, I know. And then administratively, I know Councilmember Wall can't be here at the next meeting. I just want to make sure everybody's planning on, to the best of their abilities, to be available for January 28th, that there are no other conflicts, that we know we're going to be all right. All right. And then that's that. So we have volunteer on here. Is there anything that we need to do on that, Jen, with Melissa not here?
Good evening, Mayor Domkowski.
Hi.
Oh, my camera's not on. Sorry.
Hi.
Hi. Happy New Year.
Happy New
Very quickly, the town is seeking volunteers to apply to the citizen advisory committees, and applications and more information can be obtained from me, Melissa Cardinale. For the recreation committee, W Ball, which is T-ball, but we call it W Ball here in Woodside. The registration is now open for kids ages 3 to 6 years old, and there's information on the town's website, also posted on Nextdoor, and it will be going out in the Woodside Elementary School newsletter for registration. And then save the date of the next Cars and Coffee event, which will be held on Saturday, April 12th. We'll put flyers up and again post on the website and in the e-Woodsider. For the Emergency Preparedness Committee, the committee continues to work on the revisions to the fire evacuation plan, which will be brought forward to the town council this year for review. They are also working with Woodside Fire Protection District and WPV Ready on consistent messaging that will be used by the three agencies to provide resources to the community to try to not duplicate efforts and be able to get some more streamlined information out on emergency preparedness, evacuation, etc. And then lastly, the Arts and Culture Committee and the Environment and Open Space Committee, they are working together on having a Woodside photography contest. And they're working on having youth and adult applicants, and the winners would be presented at the November 2025 First Friday event. And more details will come as they move through planning. They just had their first meeting, but I just wanted to let you know that they're working on this joint committee activity. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Melissa?
Yeah, just one thing I wanted to ask is, for first of all, anybody that is available Thursday, we can use volunteers to help answer questions if any residents have some. Hopefully, we're going to have a good turnout. I didn't ask for reservations first because I didn't want to dampen enthusiasm to come, but we've had responses from Menlo Park, Portola Valley, Atherton, people that wanted to come to this event. So could be a lot of people there, and probably use the help to explain some of the things we're trying to do. I'm sure there are going to be questions about the fires. I've already, I mean, and Woodside Fire is going to be a big presenter there, so I'm sure they're going to be ready for answers there too, so. But I'm going to, going forward, as Brian said, we're going to have a series of events going on, so we may be creating a separate committee that is creating and helping oversee and coordinate events for the community. And we need to have a couple volunteers to help put all that together. That's it.
Thank you, Dick. Okay, well, thank you, Melissa. It's always surprising how many things are going on around Woodside. Appreciate it. Okay, with that, thank you for your service to the town of Woodside. We will adjourn at 8:45.